land for those who went to the new Oregon Territory out in the Northwest. So her dad decided, we're going. Let's not forget that the women didn't have a choice. It was unheard of or not allowed to not go with the person you were married to. My father quit his job. We sold our house and nearly all our things. Father bought a prairie schooner, a lightweight wagon sturdy enough to last the trip. Now, prairie schooners are not the huge wagons that we see on television. They're very small wagons, and most of them did not make it all the way, which is why Mormons sold and carried hand carts, because that's basically was where you could carry your necessities, because wagons were hard to upkeep. So this portrayal here is historically accurate. He's going to run his own newspaper. 45 days later, we arrived in Missouri. Father sold his mules and he bought a team of oxen. Of course, supplies were higher than expected. Probably so, just like now. If you're in a place that doesn't have a lot of competition, the prices are going to be high. If you're in the middle of nowhere and there's one gas station, the gas is going to be high. Well, same for these supplies. This shows stocking up for covered wagons. You're going to need assorted livestock, tools, shovel, axe, handsaw, rope, water keg, washboard, oil lamp, things for your medicine cabinet, shoes, dry goods and cookware. He found the finest wagon train, which was led by Colonel McCarty, a retired officer of the U.S. Cavalry. When will we leave? We have to get grass for the oxen, otherwise our beasts of burden will starve. And wait, we did. There's grass knee-high in Kansas, fields and fields. Alas, hooray! So then they began their trek. Now they had to leave by a certain time of year, because if they did not, they would reach the Rockies in the middle of winter. And we all know what happened, or reach the mountains in the middle of winter. And we all know what happened at the Donner Party. So the wagons were so shaky, they were better off walking because they had no shocks. It's now 1 week since we first hit the trail. We've gone 85 miles. And then we hit a rut. Smash! The whole wagon train had to halt. And grandmother's fine china was broken. Then they stopped for the night. This talks about what they're eating. After we ate, we joined the gathering at Colonel McCarty's wagon. Quite a crowd was gathered there. The Pawnee Indians are the most friendly folk. We're not the first party to travel west. Here's how it began. Thomas Jefferson got the notion to explore the western lands because the British still had claim. So he asked Lewis and Clark to explore. They made it to the Pacific Ocean. Spanish missionaries had already been there. He was able to make maps, and then, of course, fur traders and mountain men were the first white folks to settle in the West. After Robert Stewart discovered South Pass in the Rocky Mountains, folks had an easier way to get over the mountains. Then Jesse Applegate made the first big trip out west in 1843. In my town, we have quite a few roads named Applegate. Wagon train, let's get ready to roll. 3 weeks have passed since our journey began. We've gone 200 miles. We've organized a buffalo hunt. They've lost a wheel. First, we'll need to raise up your wagon with this jack. This wheel's in bad shape. It's all dried out from the sun. Can it be fixed? I reckon so. Have ye any bacon grease? It's dry as dust. So they didn't know to grease their axles. Last of the firewood. There's no firewood once you hit a certain part of the country, so they had to use buffalo chips to burn. They burn like wood. The next morning, let's see. Our first river crossing at the Platte River. The river's muddy, Colonel, but it ain't so deep. We can make it fine. We're in luck. I trust all our wagons are sealed with tar or pitch. It would prove an easier experience than expected. This is showing that they crossed okay. That would have been terrifying. I'm sure that they expected all the rivers to be like the Platte. Later, as we stopped for a night's rest, the clouds opened above us. Pounding rain drenched us. Cholera. You remember the game. Also, they were drinking water from the Platte River, so that's another reason they got cholera, or they got sick and died, because that river was not it was it was not clean. Some in the party were thirsty. They ignored the pilot's warning. This water ain't good. Boil it before you drink it. They couldn't wait, and they didn't boil it. And so here we go, boiling the water. The doctor came, and the medicine didn't help. Then it talked about they were buried on the road we traveled. The way the wagons packed the soil down hard. No wild animals could find the graves or dig them up. Mother and father had an argument. She doesn't want to go, but it's too late to go back. There's no way to go back. At this point, they prayed they would live to see the end of the trail. Here's the Pawnee, and they're in a trading mood. They wish to trade for firearms. So they offered fresh fish and fabrics. And she's saying that the Pawnee spoke English. I like how this book gives the proper credit to the Pawnee. Tells about the first name for their tribe was Czech. I can't say that word. Czech-Hiks, men of men. Pawnee was a word that described their hairstyles. It's not the actual name of the tribe. Then they formed 4 groups: Chawai, Tapage. We'll have to see if this is changed. They were Semite to make sure what the tribe prefers to be called now, their original name, especially what particular band in the tribe they are. They were semi-sedentary. They lived in 2 different places every year. They had earth lodges, were permanent homes. Those were dome-shaped buildings. Not all natives lived in teepees. We learned in school they lived in longhouses, but that was only on the East Coast. I believe that was the Iroquois. And then out here, they lived in, sometimes Europeans called them wickiups, but they're basically similar to the earth lodge, but they're made out of tule, which is a reed. So they would build them out of reed. So it just depends where the tribe was located, is located, as to what they used. Up to 8 families lived in each lodge. They hunted buffalo in the winter months. And this says they stayed in teepees. So the Pawnee and the Oregon Trail people are talking, saying we need this wood to live, but you have so many trees here. This is my 3rd trip through these parts. First trip, there were trees aplenty here and more buffalo than I could count. Then, as people traveled, they continued to cut the trees down and also hunt the buffalo. And so they're saying don't use the trees for wood because they're finite. And it's like the people that build the rocks, those little rock piles by the creek. Well, if everybody does that, pretty soon it destroys the shoreline. And the tribe here says that if you find arrowheads, you're supposed to leave them because they're part of the history of the land. So now they're headed to Fort Laramie. All around were signs of those who had made the trip, including those who did not finish. First was Courthouse Rock and its cousin Jailhouse Rock. Then there was Chimney Rock. It's still called Chimney Rock to this day, I believe. Then they get to Fort Laramie, which was awesome because they had all kinds of supplies. They got to sleep indoors. And some of the Oregon Trail travelers decided just to stay at Fort Laramie. And then they get to shop at a store. We came upon another wonder of nature, Devil's Gate. It held the threat of falling rocks. Instant death for the unlucky. This is by Independence Rock. Then they're going to go through the Continental Divide. Seven 1,550 feet in elevation to South Pass. It did not seem that great a hill, but it obviously was. Now they were in Oregon territory. Apparently, back then, once you reached the Continental Divide and you were on the other side, you were in Oregon territory. We often think of the states as one state, is separate from another, but those are just fake lines. We're connected by land. So like New York, Upper New York, I haven't been, but it's much different than regular New York. We think of New York City, but Upper New York is full of trees. All about us could be heard the baying and snarling of coyotes. By night, these craven creatures were bold, but they were no match for the keen eyes and fast triggers of our pilots. 2 days out from South Pass, we came upon a fork in the road. It was known that the right side of the path would lead us onto the road to Oregon. We met the Green River. For once, we held no hope of an easy crossing. Its roaring waters looked deadly. We then followed a smaller river known as the Big Sandy. It led us to the river, the largest river we'd seen. There's a ferry. Maybe we should pay to cross. We've gone across plenty of rivers. We don't need any help. Some enterprising fellows had a ferry. We were charged $3.50. Just as the ferry touched the store, one wagon tried to cross the river on its own, and they didn't make it. Sometimes it pays to pay the ferryman. You can't help them. Then they neared the Idaho Territory at a big rock called Names Hill. We left our mark as we traveled on. Dust to destiny. Now they're going down big hills that they did not have back when they were from. They're steep. There's cliffs. One of them fell off. They ran off the cliff, the oxen. Anyway, I'm going to skip forward to, let's see here, Salem. That's where they ended up, which is now the capital. Father's newspaper grew like the town around us. He once ran for mayor. We built a nice house in the heart of Salem. Our life in Baltimore seems like a part of a distant past. The end.